Okay, I'm gonna talk about Spider-Man real quick. If you guys haven't watched Spider-Man Far From Home and you don't want to hear any spoilers, this is your final warning. According to Rotten Tomatoes, they got 90%. Audience meter is 96. The Metacritic is a bit weird though, because Metacritic gave it a 69%. The movie generated almost like $700 million globally as of this video, so it's considered a success. They consider Spider-Man Far From Home more of an epilogue to Endgame. That's what I don't really like. They can't let the movie stand on its own without having to relate it somehow to Avengers Endgame. I would like to move on from Avengers Endgame. Let's talk about it first. I think the movie was beautifully shot. Everything looked visually stunning. They had amazing locations and landmarks. It's called Far From Home because Spider-Man is taken to places like Italy, Prague. What I really enjoy about the movie the most were the excellent acting moments. The cast was great, right? Jake Gyllenhaal played as Mysterio, the main villain of the movie. Tom Holland was Spider-Man, and Zendaya played as MJ. And Samuel L. Jackson's in the movie too. So I really enjoy all the acting moments when they get like really serious and they talk to each other, because I think the action is more like icing on the cake, right? The acting has to be the cake, right? So I really enjoyed the acting. Another pro I enjoyed about this movie is I cared about some of the characters, especially like Peter's best friend and MJ. So they did a really good job with that, because the problem I had with Spider-Man Homecoming was I didn't really care about the other characters, and at times I had a lot of trouble even caring about Peter because I don't find his character like relatable. At times he is, at times he's not, and I think that's the problem the new Spider-Man movies have. That's the biggest problem the Amazing Spider-Man movies have with Andrew Garfield. And I think the most relatable Spider-Man to me, and this sounds like I'm wearing nostalgic glasses, is the Sam Raimi movies with Tobey Maguire. That's like still my favorite Spider-Man movies of all time. Back to the pros. I love MJ's character. I really like her character. She is such an eccentric character, but a character that you root for. Their relationship took time to build. It was not forced at all. It felt so real when they were like awkward in front of each other. Like what I really like in those scenes between Zendaya and Tom Holland, you can see what they were thinking just by their expressions, just by their eyes. I really like to see Happy and Aunt May together. The tech in this movie is amazing. They brought back some of like Tony Stark's like technology. There's a bit of like Mysterio's technology. I love the whole UI where he's like controlling the drones. It looks really stunning. I like the new Spidey suits. They don't try to force it too much, but at the same time, it's kind of like checklist, right? Like, hey man, this is like a new Spider-Man movie. We gotta give him a new suit so we can sell like a different version of a toy or something. The other pro I really like is the great action scenes. I would say the fights with Mysterio is one of the best villain fights in a Spider-Man movie. And this is me saying this with the knowledge that Spider-Man 2 have one of the greatest fight scenes with Dr. Octopus. At the end of the day, Spider-Man 2 definitely still wins because like those fights actually carry more weight. There was more of a build-up. Even to this day, that fight is like one of the most intense fights of all time, right? So I would say like the fight with Mysterio is like the second best fight I've ever seen in a Spider-Man movie. If you're gonna watch Spider-Man Far From Home, you don't really care about story, just stay there for the fights because I guarantee you it's gonna be worth every single penny. So you guys may not know this, but Mysterio is like one of my favorite Marvel villain characters ever. When I was a kid, I bought this comic book with Mysterio in front of it and I didn't know who he is, right? And that was what was so cool about him. He's like this enigma. He uses illusion to like create like Kage Bunshin no Jutsu doppelganger. Okay, that's a Naruto reference. Basically, he creates like mirror images of himself around him, right? So Spider-Man doesn't know which is the real one. And I love the whole effect in the comics where he will like disappear and reappear somewhere else. Let me go through the other things I like. There was like a really cool, unique moment where they tried to introduce this humor or this joke. Aunt May would call like Peter Parker's spider sense Peter Tingle. But at the start, when she said that joke, I was kind of like cringe, man. I was kind of like, ugh, are you really trying to get a cheap laugh out of me? And that joke actually paid off because the way Spider-Man defeats Mysterio, and this is true even in the comics, he cannot rely on sight. Mysterio creates illusions everywhere. If you just use your sight, you're gonna lose. So in order to fight and win against Mysterio, you have to use your spider sense. And that's where the whole Peter Tingle joke came back and it paid off and I really enjoyed that. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about some cons. These are minor before I move to the major ones. The humor was kind of corny sometimes. The thing I don't like about the whole high school thing is like the teachers were lame, the classmates were forgettable. I don't care about them. Every time they talk, they're just trying to interject humor into the movie. Sometimes it is funny. Sometimes it kind of wears you out. They introduced this character, right? He's like a sub-villain, if you will. He is a love rivalry for Peter, and he's interested in MJ. And what I don't like about the whole rivalry was they try to like big up this guy, right, by saying like he's really popular with girls, but they don't show him with girls. So in the audience's head, he's supposed to be like confident, cool, and people like him. He was like poorly written. He tells Peter to back the fuck off because he's going to get MJ no matter what. But that kind of pulled me out of the movie because like they could have done a better job at doing that story if the love rival is actually a really cool dude. And he's like so charismatic and handsome that he's actually a legit threat to Peter instead of like outright making him like an evil guy. What I don't like about movies is like when they make it really clear to the viewers like, hey, this is a bad guy, you're supposed to hate him, you know? So we're gonna give him a bunch of attributes or a bunch of like stuff to do to make you hate him even more. There was this like stupid joke in the movie where like he entered this room and I think there was like a Russian lady or European lady of some sorts, and she told Peter, take off your clothes. And Peter was like, right, really? Just like right now? And she's like, yes, take off your clothes. And as soon as he pulled down his pants, the love rival opens the door and shows up. He takes a picture and he threatens Peter that he's going to like use this picture and show it to everyone, because basically he wants to use this picture to like make Peter look bad so that he can get with MJ. Peter got his hands on like some Tony Stark technology, right? He basically wanted to erase that picture using like the technology, but he accidentally sent a killer drone that almost killed that dude. There was just like another excuse to film an action scene. There's like this whole scene where like Peter's like scrambling not to kill this guy. The way that story was written kind of robbed character growth away from Peter. If they just made that guy normal and he's just a guy who's also into MJ, he's like the complete opposite of Peter. Instead of being awkward, he's confident, really talented, and he's cool. That means Peter has to do more. Peter has to be like a better man. And I would have loved a scene where Peter went to MJ and say like, hey, you know, I just want to let you know that I like you, but I see that you have a thing with this guy. I don't want to like stand in between y'all. Like, and I want MJ to choose Peter Parker despite that other guy. That other guy may be more handsome, he may be more cool, he's probably taller, but MJ at the end of the day is going to choose Peter over him. Not because he's Spider-Man, not because, you know, he is part of the Avengers, but because Peter is Peter and the girl likes Peter for who he is. That would be a bigger payoff rather than like this guy being like such a bad dude, you know? So I felt that was like a poor writing choice, but I guess like the reason they made those choices was to kind of interject action scenes. They were trying to reintroduce like Tony Stark technology into the movie, you know, because like I get it, Iron Man is like what sells movie tickets, but come on, man. Marvel should have more confidence in Spider-Man as a standalone and not try to always interject more and more Iron Man into it, which is what they did with the first movie. Major plot holes in the movie, because I definitely felt it, right? I loved this movie, I enjoyed it, but something felt really off. Okay, so number one, Tony's glasses. So Tony's glasses is the MacGuffin in this movie. Happy handed Peter Tony's old glasses. When he wore the glasses, he essentially inherited all of Tony Stark's technology. Just like that. Apparently Tony made some contingency in the event anything happens to him. All of his assets and technology will be transferred to Peter because I think he really believes Peter is a good person. So I really like that. But there's a major plot hole with the whole glasses thing. The glasses was just a vehicle to introduce this AI that becomes like Peter's assistant, and the AI is called Edith, E-D-I-T-H, which apparently stands for even death, I am the hero. Okay, so what I like about that was like there was like a spiritual passing of the torch, right? Like since like Tony Stark died from Endgame, he's technically beyond the grave passing the torch to Peter. But here's the problem. The AI had no fucking personality. You would think like since like Edith is like an AI Tony created after Jarvis, Edith would be more personable and smarter. Edith's got to be more smarter than Jarvis. Edith just feels like a cheap version of Alexa. Alexa played Despacito. She feels like Alexa right now. She doesn't feel like she has a personality. I know this is like a very minor thing to pick on. What I really like about Tony Stark's AIs are they are smart. They are like personable. They really sound like a real person. Like Jarvis actually sounds like a butler. Jarvis was way smarter than Edith. Jarvis would always give like Tony like alternatives. Jarvis would always like banter with Tony. The reason why the Edith AI in this movie is so bad was because Peter essentially was tricked by Mysterio, right? And when I say tricked, I mean in quotation marks tricked by Mysterio to pass Edith to him. So Peter felt that he didn't deserve the Edith AI. He essentially passed the AI just by handing over the glasses. Essentially, Mysterio inherits all of Tony Stark's technology. So there's a major plot hole in this, and it's like, why on earth Tony Stark not make us fail safe in the AI? Like later on in the movie, in the climax, Mysterio commands the drones to kill Peter Parker. And the funny thing about this whole thing is like whenever Peter wears the glasses kind of scans who he is biometrically. The AI knows it is Peter. Tony is supposed to program in that AI that Peter Parker is an ally, a good person. Just by the simple act of Peter handing over the technology to Mysterio, Mysterio was able to somehow overwrite that technology and make Peter killable by Tony's own AI. And also the other thing is like, how does Mysterio know about Edith? You know, because he somehow knew about this AI. Like there was this whole scene where he was sitting with Peter in the bar and like, you know, Mysterio was trying to like play it really friendly and he's a cool guy. And somehow Peter decided to hand over Edith to him. He didn't set it up at all. He didn't like try to convince Peter to give him the AI. As soon as Peter gave him the AI and Peter left, Mysterio was like, oh, this is all going according to plan. Peter's a 16-year-old kid. Why on earth Tony Stark didn't build a failsafe for that? At least he could have built a failsafe that allows Peter not to get killed by his own AI. That's what I really like about Mysterio when I was a kid, right? He didn't need to use Tony Stark's technology to fight. You could say that he didn't need it in the first place and all it does is just make him stronger, but I just feel like it cheapens the villain in general. So I'm going to talk about some Spider-Man character lore issues that the movie has. And basically in this movie, Peter is incredibly selfish because the writers forgot his lore and his promise to Uncle Ben, right? In case you guys didn't know about the lore, Uncle Ben got killed because Peter failed to like catch a criminal and he let that criminal go, and that criminal like came back to shoot Uncle Ben. The reason why that is so important to the entire core of who Spider-Man is because Spider-Man is an average guy. Spider-Man is like you and me. He has like rent problems, girl problems, he have work problems, but at the end of the day, no matter how hard it is, he's always going to choose to do the right thing. And that's what makes him so compelling to people. People always look up to Spider-Man for having the strength to always do the right thing over his own interests. So even if people he loves die or he doesn't get what he wants, he always chooses to do the right thing. And that is not the case in this movie. In this movie, Peter was incredibly selfish. When Nick Fury asked Peter to help him take out this monster, all Peter cares about is going back to his school trip and trying to like tell MJ that he likes her. I don't get that part. Like, I'm a Spider-Man fan. Like, that is uncharacteristically not Peter. Peter will always choose the hard route. He would always choose not having what he wants so that everyone survives, everyone lives. That's a sacrifice because his uncle's Ben's death, he doesn't want anyone to go through that shit. So with great power comes great responsibility. Apparently he forgotten that whole lesson in this movie. And I think this is why Sam Raimi movies are better in that aspect, because they stay really true to who Spider-Man is. So that's the major complaint I have about Spider-Man's lore issue and character. I have this problem with Marvel movies in general, right? Where they have to somehow interject Tony into all the movies. Obviously Tony's already dead, but they still try to find a way to shoehorn him in. Whether it's like using his tech or like Mysterio like conjuring up Iron Man zombie to come out of the grave to scare Peter. They always got to like show Tony. Like I don't mind if at the start of the movie they pay tribute to Tony, right? Which they did, but they didn't have to always like bring him up. You know, like I want Spider-Man to stand on his own legs as Spider-Man, but I understand why they did that, because like in a way they wanted it to be like handing the torch, or like the passing of the torch to the next big Marvel hero. And there was a scene where Spider-Man in the movie, he was like doing the whole Tony Stark thing where he was like touching holograms and trying to create his suit. And then when Happy looked at him, Happy was like, geez man, this guy could be the next Tony Stark. So part of me liked that part about the movie, but part of me kind of hated it too. Okay, I didn't like the fact that they have to also shoehorn Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. into the movie. Every time Spider-Man has a new movie nowadays, Nick Fury has to be in it, just because like they want the fans to go like, oh, Nick Fury, I remember, you remember? I
I remember.
Come on, man. We all know how fucking cool like Samuel L. Jackson is, but you don't have to have him in all the Spider-Man movies or like all the Marvel movies. Like you don't have to have him like kind of act as a babysitter to Peter. I wanted Peter to already like get past that. If you wanted to show him in the movie, I would appreciate it if they showed just a small, just a tiny like cameo of Nick Fury, just on the phone. Hey, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Whatever. The movie also suffers from checklist dilemma. Marvel has a checklist, right? And I talk about this like with games like Kingdom Hearts. They have a checklist of things that they think if they put into the movie is going to get the fans hyped up. And the things that they put in are just things that are going to be like member berry things. You remember this thing in that movie? Yeah, we bring it back here. That was like one of the things they tried to do with Mysterio's whole crew. They were all rejected scientists from the previous Marvel movies. One of them was like that dude from the first Iron Man movie Obadiah Stane was like shouting at to miniaturize an arc reactor. He made an appearance as like Mysterio's main guy. All my complaints is just because like I want this movie to be good, right? I still enjoyed it. I still loved it. But I'm looking forward to Peter becoming the new Tony Stark, I guess. But I hope they don't overdo it. I hope they don't overdo it to the point where Peter forgets his identity as Spider-Man. I want him to always stay Spider-Man. Okay, so closing thoughts about the movie. I found it like a really fun and enjoyable movie. So I highly recommend you guys go to the theaters just to watch it for the action. You might enjoy the story, and if you do enjoy the story, like good for you, but I think the story could use more work. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. This is just my honest take, and I might change my opinion in the future, but this is what I think about so far. Thanks for listening, guys. Basically, I watched Spider-Man Far From Home yesterday, right? And like I got free tickets, so I only go to watch movies whenever I get free tickets. I don't like to spend money on movies because like I don't like it when people talk in the movies or whenever kids are screaming. So I was kind of like thankful that my movie experience last night wasn't too bad. I watched the movie at 9:15 p.m. after I was done with the gym. I mean, I went to like this really like big cinema, right? And they had like this whole Spider-Man statue with a backdrop and you can take a picture. And it was kind of weird because like today was the last day that statue was going to be there, man. When I was done with the movie, that statue was gone. They removed it. You can see like people like lifting it up and stuff. And the kids in that movie was like kind of well behaved. They didn't scream too much. The problem I had with that movie was like two Middle Eastern ladies who sat to my right. And like every time Spider-Man gets his ass kicked, they would make sounds like... It got so annoying that every time something major happens, they make that sound, so it kind of like pulls me out of that movie. So like I turned to the lady to my right and I make this sound. And then she turned and looked at me and I did this. And then she was cool about it, man. She was like, okay, I'm sorry.